Hi, I'm Steve Piazzale, a career and life coach, and welcome to Your Hired, a show about jobs and careers in which we answer questions such as, how do I find work that makes me come alive? How do I make it through the maze of resumes, networking, negotiating? How do I land in a good job that's a good fit for me? Well, we're going to answer those questions and many more by having on the show knowledgeable, lively guests. And this is usually where I say all these wonderful things about the guest, but I'm going to be the guest, and we have a guest host. Connie Weiss is here again. She may look familiar to you. She was an excellent guest at a recent show. She's the founder and CEO of My Pet Street, and it's mypetstreet.com,
yes,
right?
Yes.
But you're in charge this time, and you can say My Pet Street.
Well, welcome to your show, Steve.
Thank you.
So why don't we start with your talking a little bit about your work as a career life coach and also what motivated you to become a career coach?
Yeah, well, I mean, first in terms of being a coach, I'm a career and life coach, and what I do is I try to help clients get, primarily one-on-one, try to get them unstuck and build momentum towards reaching their goals faster than they would on their own. And this usually ends up saving them time, money, and a lot of stress, as well as landing them in a better job than they would otherwise. But in terms of what got me into it, it's a long story, but I was a math major as an undergraduate, and I surprised my teachers by going into sociology and psychology and getting a Ph.D. from Stanford in that. And then I made another switch and ended up in high tech as primarily a writer, documentation, marketing writing, and the like. And I had that career for quite some time, but about 6.5 years ago I was laid off, the only time I'd been laid off. They shut down the whole West Coast operation. And I was questioning everything. I was also going through a divorce at the same time, so everything was up for grabs.
Big life change.
Oh, yeah. And so what I did was I volunteered my services at one of the one-stops. It's called ProMatch, one of the one-stops in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. And they kept telling me I was a natural. I started coaching people on their resumes, and they said, you're a natural at this. I didn't even know that they were listening to my conversations. I'd be coaching them. They'd say, hey, good session, Steve. And I thought, gee, I thought this was private. But so anyway, they kept telling me that. So then I got some training from Right Management, talked to other coaches, did informational interviews. And it's just been a great match. So I've been building the business for the last 6 years. And you know, it is something I like so much, and I feel like I'm good at it, and it makes a difference. And I try to impart to my clients the same, or try to help them move along a path similar to what I went through, in the sense of finding a job that just makes them come alive. So I just love what I do, and it's...
I can see that.
I do. I love it. I really do.
What are some of the reasons why someone would come to you to get coaching for their career or their life?
Well, it can be a lot of different things. I mean, for some people, they're underemployed or unemployed. Other people feel stuck in the jobs that they're involved in and they need a change, or they're trying to get promoted. But usually it's a type of thing that it's hard for them to do this on their own. It's surprising how many people will do things for bosses that are just incredible. Like a boss will say, by Friday I want 150 reports on my desk, and we'll just kill ourselves to try to get that done. There may be some pushback, but not too much. But when we say, oh, on Saturday I'm going to spend 2 hours working on my resume, and somebody asks you to do something, we'll just break the promise with ourselves. And part of coaching is to try to build a structure where you have larger goals, they're broken into achievable smaller goals, and then weekly action items that help you feel like you're making progress and making a commitment to yourself. And sometimes what people need is someone to provide a forum for accountability. That if you're going to say to me that by next week you're going to contact 2 people and revise your resume and that sort of thing, then I want to meet with you the next week or 2 weeks later and say, hey, you know, what progress did you make? What stood in the way? So people come to me a lot of times because they're just stuck. They've tried it and it hasn't worked. And there's one other thing, setting goals. It's hard, when somebody is job hunting, a lot of times they feel like they need to do everything all at one time. And it's just so overwhelming that they end up procrastinating. Part of the job, again, of a coach is to break it into pieces so that they can feel like each week they're making progress towards it. And the other thing is, it's hard to do it alone. I mean, working is usually in a collective type of an environment, but when you're job hunting or trying to get a better job or starting a business, a lot of times it can feel very lonely. So a coach is again, an outside source, a guide, a feedback, a sounding board, a supporter, and all that. And in fact, we might get to it later, but I encourage them to be part of success teams as well, so that they could get additional support. So.
Yeah. And you mentioned a couple of things that it is, in today's job market, there's a lot of stuff going on with getting your resume together, getting the networking, getting the interviewing, even negotiating your new salary. And so you've actually brought a graphic tonight that kind of goes over some key points to help simplify the whole process. So what I'm going to do is read the points and then have you comment on each one.
Sure, yeah.
So the first point is resume with value-added results.
Yeah, the first thing I usually do with clients, well, it's not necessarily the first thing, but very close to the beginning, is to convert their resumes from a job description type of a resume. Not most, but a lot of people have a resume that just says trained such and such, led such and such a team, manager oversight. And all it does is describe the responsibilities, but doesn't show really how you did the job. So what we try to do is to come up with little success stories that actually occurred in specific periods of time. They're called different things by different people. I call them PSRs. There's a problem, there's a solution to the problem, and a result. So what goes in your resume is, I achieved this result, which is valuable, by doing such and such. And so that's the first thing, to make the resume come alive. And a lot of times I also have my clients practice these things out loud, because that's preparing them for the interview at the same time that they're doing the resume. So the first thing is resumes with value-added success stories.
Great. What about the second bullet, self-knowledge and confidence?
Yeah, well, again, I think this is one of the hard things about being unemployed, underemployed, or even being stuck in your job, is you're not being reinforced for what you're doing, that you're good. You're not saying to yourself, boy, I'm good. You feel like something's wrong. And by practicing these success stories out loud, I've found my clients get back in touch with what they were really good at in the first place. They haven't suddenly lost it just because they've been a place too long or they're underemployed. And every one of those stories is, by doing such and such, I created value, or cut back the time it took to do something, or resolved the conflict, or ensured customer loyalty, and I use this skill to do that, and that skill to do that. And I find that they just kind of get back in touch with what they're good at, and remember that they were good, and it gives them a little more confidence in interviewing and networking and the other steps that come along.
And that's probably really helpful in a case where you've been a victim of reduction in force. So,
yeah, you feel like I was unnecessary or something, especially when one of these more recent reduction in forces where they reduce you and then they replace you with no one, and you think, oh, that's great.
Exactly. I must have been doing something important.
Right, yeah.